Hurry up, you bitch.
You're gonna have to edit. We're already recording. 1 second.
Cool. Hurry up! Hurry up! Hey everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of Wicked Unscripted, where we have unscripted conversations about some of the most popular reality shows on television. My name is Abigail Adams. I am your host for this podcast. Joining me today, as always, is the lovely Sarah Talks. We are here to not only talk about episode 6 of Survivor 46, it is our 50th episode. So I'm so excited.
Fucking episodes.
Can you believe it?
50th.
It could have been sooner. What did I tell you, Sarah? I'm just because we're shooting the shit to start this. What did I tell you that my boyfriend was going to walk through the door the fucking second that we started recording? Oh, let's go. Just wonderful timing. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do hope to have potentially a special guest joining us in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's kind of kick off our coverage of this episode. And I'm like really excited because finally it feels like we have some momentum in this season. We've been looking for it for so goddamn long. So I'm just...
Yeah.
I can bitch all.
And they're being
day.
merge.
Well, merge-atory. Merge-atory. Merge-atory has grown on me. It's still not my favorite because of the way they go about, like, we'll talk about later in the episode a little more about like rock draws and stuff like that. Like, I think there are things that they could do to really sew up some loose ends here. But I don't know. It just... it's grown on me. I did not like merge-atory to start. And I understand if people still don't like it. I think with some tweaking, it can still be okay. But this wasn't too bad of a merge-atory.
No, I liked it because you have you got the tribe that's just down to dwindles and like nothing. And then you got the vibe tribe who, is loyal to the end and won't ever turn on each other. And then you got the winners, the ones that just crush every single comp. So like to see them all just kind of unleashed on each other to get some new dynamics and some new relationships in the mix. Like I was very, very, very excited for this.
Yeah, I was too. And to your point about Yanu, I think they're sitting pretty right now. It's not that they're in the most perfect position. I think there's nothing that's perfect in Survivor. Even if they want to paint it that way in a storyline, I don't think that's necessarily always the case. But I really think if they can stay together, and that's a capital if, if they can stay tight, they really can control these votes going forward. It gives a lot of like how Tika controlled Survivor 44 back in the day. And I've been meaning to say this in a couple episodes. What are the odds that the tribes that just get decimated in 46 and 44 are both the purple tribe? Like, it's like, are we starting some sort of like, is there a reason you don't want to be on purple? Because if anybody watched the show Endurance as a kid, they had like the gray tribe or the gray team curse, where it was literally like if you were put on the gray team, you pretty much were guaranteed to go home first. So I pray that is not what we're getting into when people get put onto purple tribes. But I do really like the position that they're in right now for the game moving forward. Siga had very I mean, Nami and Siga had both very minimal airtime going into this, but I feel like Siga had the least. If it's not the least, we learned the least about them, in my opinion. So it was kind of weird when Moriah started getting all this airtime in this episode. It's like, well, it's a red flag.
I feel like I've seen the least of Nami. Because we've gotten more like the vibe tribes, they're the dancing, and they've been to tribal, and we've seen a little bit more from them. I feel like Nami's the one that like I want to know more about, but we've up until this point we've seen the least of.
Maybe that is also just like perspectives of how we're viewing Nami and Siga.
Yeah.
Because I ultimately just think I don't even know if there's necessarily one that's gotten less airtime. They just have not even come close to having the airtime that Yanu has had.
Yanu's very much capitalized the majority of the season so far, not by their choosing. I will say that, but I'm excited to see more because I feel like I'm excited and optimistic. We're gonna see a little bit more cutthroat from Tevin. I feel like Soda's got some fire in her, and they're characters on that tribe.
So many. Oh my! I think that's partially why I'm sad they didn't get to go to tribal before this.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm missing that side of them, and so this kind of was giving me some of that where I could experience a little bit of it at least.
Yeah, but before we go into Hunter finding his idol, I also just kind of want to mention, like, awkward. So we're going into this. So Yanu has 3 tribe members left when we're going into this merge-atory situation. Siga has 5 and Nami has 6. The only like asterisk that you're gonna need to add to Nami though is that Hunter doesn't have a vote. And that would have given them a massive leg up in terms of merge votes. But you know, they didn't necessarily need it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Siga, I don't know what the hell is going on with those people, but their merge choices were choices. There's a lot to criticize. There's a lot to like, I think, also, but like there are like some massive what the fuck moments where it's like, bro, how are you doing this? Like Tim in particular being like, I have no plan. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and Q's like, you can't do that. I think someone's dying.
And how did he not, like, he didn't even mention post journey about the journey 6 is what they're calling them.
Yep.
The fact that never even got brought up was a major misstep on his part.
I still don't. I don't even understand his, like, I get his reasoning, but I don't. He was like, I wanted her to figure it out on her own. That is not something you want.
Strategy. No. And not to mention, like, what a great, like obviously y'all aren't each other's number one. I don't know why you picked her, because
I think he is actually convinced that she's his number one, and he is that lost in the game.
Which, whatever. But then, like, post journey, yes, you're the vibe. Tell everybody how you're feeling. But then when you have a moment with her, say that the other tribes reps wanted to have like a post merge something to solidify, and everyone said who their person was that they would want to include in that, and I included you. You're my person. And that way, like, whether she thinks you're bullshitting or not, then you have merge come up and Q approaches you and he tells you, like, hey, he said you're his person. Now you're like, oh, I've got him. But then, like, that's such a dumb move on Tim's part to, like, amp somebody up or like pull somebody into your safety net and not fucking tell them.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I wouldn't hate the no plan thing if he wasn't getting himself into things that require plans. Like, you can't play, I have no plans, and then literally make this kind of an agreement. Because he's also saying in confessionals, he's like, I have not decided what my game's looking like from here. I'm figuring it out as we go. We'll see what alliances are made. It's like, buddy. You have been just presented on a platter. One of the best options you could ever receive in a Survivor game. It's not just a 6-person alliance. It is a cross-tribe 6-person alliance that wants to work with you.
Yes.
How do you say no to that? It reminds me, I don't know if anybody's a Bob's Burgers fan on here. I don't know if you're a Bob's Burgers fan.
I've seen a few episodes.
So there is an episode where Tina gets asked to a dance.
They eat people, right? Is that the whole gist of the...
What?
Is that the canon? That they're people burgers?
Pretty much. They're also very autistically coded. So they all have credible traits. And they're fun. I literally live it's one of my favorite shows. I love that fucking show. I could
And that's how I twerk.
So anyways, so in one of the episodes, Jimmy Jr. Actually Tina is like, hey Jimmy Jr., do you want to go to the dance? And Jimmy's like, maybe. And so like Tina is like, oh well, I'm gonna go to the dance with this other guy at a different school. And it's like this like it feels like it's a very similar dynamic that I'm watching right now on Survivor. And it's just like, what are we doing? It feels like Tim. I've been trying to wrap my mind around this part all week. I just don't know what Tim is doing. I don't think Tim has bad intentions either.
I don't think Tim knows what Tim is doing.
I think that's a good point. Very good point. Before also, I think we skipped over this just a tad, but do you want to do a quick little advantage count? Because Hunter is now the latest person to find an idol. I was mentioning to this, I don't remember when, but sometime before we recorded, how much time did he have? Because that felt like it was really, so they all got their letters and they were like, oh,
I feel like
merging.
But I feel like Venus asked the question like, how long do we have or something like that?
Did I miss it?
No. I don't know, but I feel like I heard someone ask, and it might not even been this season, but I could be confusing it, but I felt like it's not immediate. It's like,
oh no,
you have a few hours to pack your things.
They have 10 minutes to pack their things. Here's the difference. We don't know how long they have between getting on the boat, traveling on the boat, and getting there. We don't know, are they going to be doing interviews before they leave? Because they might still have the 10 minutes, but they might be like, okay, now we're going to peel you guys off, do some interviews before we leave, then we'll send you on the boat, then we'll do this. Like, I have no idea what that time, it could be upwards of an hour, to be very fair.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm like,
you know what? Criticizing about how long do we have until tribal? Never mind. It wasn't until March.
Oh my God, you're fine. No.
But that question was asked. I'm not misremember. Yeah, and it was like 3 hours, but I think that was till tribal.
But it's still, and so I'm not even saying that it's a bad thing. Like, oh, they clearly, I'm not trying to insinuate like they gave Hunter hints, or I'm not trying to say anything bad. It's just, it was interesting to me that Hunter had that amount of time to go find the key, dig up the idol, find it, chuck the box wherever it's gonna go, and get back before everybody either notices on his tribe or before people show up on the beach. So it was just a question that came to my mind, because like it seemed like it happened fast. I'm aware that it's possibly just editing, but it kind of seems like he almost did it like in a matter of 10 minutes. I cannot wait for his exit interviews so we can find that out. Like, if Mike Bloomberg or Sharon Tharp, I don't think she's doing exit stuff right now, but like Dalton Ross, anybody who's doing exit press, please ask. Pretty please. We want to know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So right now, advantage count. Do you want to pull this up while I chat about it? We have, oddly enough, only 3 advantages going into the merge. And if you're watching our
team,
shut the fuck up. But if you're watching our YouTube version, you can see this on the screen. Sarah's come up with a great new graphic for us, so it's super, super helpful. So she has split our winners pick choices half and half, and surprisingly, we are still evenly divided. But besides that, we have 3 advantages still left in the game. 1 extra vote and 2 idols. The idols belong to Tiffany, who found it on day 1, and Hunter, as we just mentioned, who just found his idol. And we have Tevin, who has his extra vote from episode 1 as well, where he went on that journey and was able to convince Moriah that he was the person, or whatever. I can't remember how that worked. Just Jelinski bombed it. That's literally all I can remember of that journey, is just Jelinski just doing a nosedive. Like, I'm sorry, I'm actually the person who's wrong. What are you fucking doing, bro? Like, he should have been cast 5 years later. He was not mature enough yet, I don't think, for this game.
He's definitely the one I want to play 2 truths and a lie with.
I love you. That's so funny. So, one of the things I was mentioning, we do a lot of talking in between recordings and the actual episodes themselves. And in between recordings, like I was taught, it's really big to me noticing how few advantages there are right now going into the merge. And I kind of hope Survivor sees this and understands that, like, this is kind of what we've been asking for. I know there have been opportunities for advantages to be won in journeys and everyone's lost. I don't necessarily hate that either, I guess, because if you're going to make it difficult to win on a journey, it keeps this very kind of like, not tight-knit, but it doesn't feel like you're just handing out advantages to people for doing something very basic, you know?
Yeah.
Because that puzzle that, like, think about the Ben and Banu puzzle that they had to do with the blocks. That was difficult. The only one that I thought was a given was Hunter on the journey with the late. I just, as somebody who's a super fan, I would have been able to get that.
That was a hard one. I mean, I'm a Big Brother super fan, and I have played trivia games where logos and, you know, putting them in order and stuff like that. And like that, it's very difficult.
I think,
especially on a time crunch.
It might be also because my brain compartmentalizes like numbers, because not all brains work the same, you know? Like, he might not have been looking at it in the same kind of way. He seems to have I mean, I don't know if he has a numbers mind. No offense, I don't think he has a numbers mind. I don't think he has the worst numbers mind, but I think it's not as sharp as others. That comment could definitely come and bite me in the ass in the future. So we'll see. We'll see. Save that comment for the future. But yeah, just really interesting to kind of see how this breaks down. Kind of hitting our winners reminder a little early. So if you haven't seen, surprise, surprise, Moriah goes home.
Mo is no Mo.
Mo is no Mo. And I think it's a perfect way to say, I think her biggest mistake was not telling people that she was at the bottom of the tribe. The fact that she waited until tribal council to bring that up made me scream.
Not to mention the fact they all showed up to merge being like, oh, we vibe hard. We're all besties. You can't get me to say a name. And then Mo's going to wait until tribe will be like, oh, wait, just kidding. I'm not with them. I voted differently than them. Like, what? Like, oh my God.
It just, and Q, and I'm not saying, because, you know, Q, when we did our winners draft, I was so floored. Or actually, I just kind of accidentally jumped the gun. When we did our winners draft, I remember you and I were talking like, oh, it seems like he has very basic Survivor knowledge. Like, it's like he knows the game, but how much does he know the current game? And we were kind of questioning.
You're talking about Q?
Yes. I still have some questions about how well he knows the modern game, but to say that he knows nothing about the previous game is so incorrect. Like, he is very knowledgeable. I've been really, really impressed. He is.
I could go back and listen, but I felt like that was Tim. Tim has recruit energy all over him. And then since our draft, I have found, like, there was another interview that came out, and I think it came out like the week after our draft, where he was asked how much Survivor he's watched. He's like, it was on in our house growing up.
I don't mind when they
that kind of shit showed today. So I showed in this episode.
Yeah. Well, so I actually think that's a really good point, because, you know, that is the difference. So when we got down to the bottom of our draft, Q and Tim were two of the last people. And I took Q because I was like, well, I think he has a little bit more game knowledge. Thank God I had the common sense to see that. Love you, Tim. Apologies. But I'm actually pretty impressed with how well Q knows the game. The thing is, his Survivor knowledge really actually could come back to bite him, because he jumped really, really quickly on Moriah after she was like, hey, I love Aubrey. Aubrey's one of the people I really enjoy. And he's like, she thinks that Aubrey's the best. And oh my God, we have to get her out. And I was like, that is not the worst jump, because clearly if someone like looks up to somebody, like that's why I picked Venus, because Venus is like, I am Parvati 2.0. Bye. And it's just like, I don't know. It feels like that. It's like, I think that could really hurt him down the line if he continues to make such bold assumptions without really thinking things through. Because I think that was a correct bold assumption. Maybe he did think it through. So I don't want to say that he didn't, but it's like,
it's a tunnel vision problem.
yes,
we see it a lot in these kinds of shows where you get tunnel vision, laser focused on a particular trait or a particular ick moment, or something that somebody says that gives you a bad vibe, and then you hyper focus on it. And when you're hyper focusing on it, more times than not, in Survivor, in Big Brother, we see it time and time again, where you get so hyper focused and laser focused on getting one person out for a very specific reason that you're not seeing the forest through the trees here, that there are bigger problems going on around you. And I can't tell you how many times tunnel vision has been a fatal flaw for like so many players in this game and in Big Brother.
I was going to say, and pretty much I think it's any reality competition show that requires you to participate in the elimination of your fellow contestants. You see it all the time. All the time. Yeah. I think Q has the ability to overcome it if he gives himself the chance to do so. Because I think he actually, to his credit, has the game knowledge to understand that that's something to overcome. But at the same time, we have seen him go into coach mode so quickly. And two asterisk, not coach the player, coach like he's from football.
Which his flavor of coach mode is a lot more digestible than, say, that of like a Bruce character. Like he doesn't come off as, he comes off as a leader, but one that's not trying to assert himself as leader, one that's not trying to dominate a tribe. He comes across as very much a leader to those who come to him to lead them. And that, I think, is one of his greatest qualities in this game.
I just had so many thoughts go through my head about that.
But that typically when we see someone who tries to take on the role as coach, or like in Kenzie's case, Queen Bee, it will bite them in the ass at some point. Typically bites them in the ass pretty early on. But I think that Q's approach is a lot less domineering than what we've seen in seasons past.
So we're going to get a little bit of a taste of possible Q drama in the next episode. And I almost wonder, I do think he has the capability to, if somebody approaches him and says, you're playing too hard, back it up. I think he has the ability to back it up. I think he is very strong-willed, but I don't think he is so blind. I think he could be blind enough to be like, no, I still want to do it my way. But I actually really think he has the foresight. He has the ability to be like, okay, wait, maybe I should kind of back off on this, at least for now. Doesn't mean he doesn't have his own agenda. And you should have your own agenda on Survivor, to be very clear. It's when people lean into it either too soon, too late in Moriah's instance. Because I actually think she was good. If she had just played that, if she had spoken up 2 hours earlier, I think things would have totally changed. And it's not that I want Venus to go. I didn't want that. But it's just like, yeah.
But I'm going to be honest, like, Venus was the better move for them here. Venus is more of a threat than Mo.
They seem to think that she's just only shiesty. And I don't like that word for her either. I don't like, that's the word that like I think Tiffany used. It's like, I mean, it's not wrong, but it's like she is sneaky, and I don't disagree with that. But she's also really strategic, and I feel like it's getting written off by people who could literally just work with her.
Yeah.
Like, she's at the bottom. Hello? Wouldn't that be somebody, if you're not necessarily in the most secure part in your tribe, wouldn't you want to work with somebody like that?
Yeah.
But I understand, to be fair, Tevin and Hunter, specifically Tevin more or less, has done an incredible job of portraying her in the light they want people to see her in, which is one of the best skills you can have in Survivor. Because it's all about manipulating how people view the social situation. And I think Tevin is just a master at that. If I were to ever end up on this show and then somehow did like a all-star season, he would be the man that I would be fucking shitting my pants over from this season. Not even Hunter in particular, because he's so socially savvy. It's mind-blowing to me in a lot of situations. Doesn't mean I don't see little potential flaws in terms of potentially overlooking someone like Venus, who can have more power than I think he gives her credit for sometimes. Other than that, I think it's like, oh shit, I wouldn't survive against that man. So this cast is so fun. Like,
it is. I've been saying it every week. I love this cast so much, and typically in a season I have like 3 or 4 that I want to watch all the time, and now it's like I can't get enough of like there's just not, like, I keep getting pulled to another, like it's fun
to root for multiple people and not feel like you're gonna be cornered in it. And it's not even like
I'm fucking obsessed with my draft team.
I'm actually obsessed with your draft team too. No, actually, to be fair, I really like my draft team too. I think you have much more though of the stronger people, and mine are like dark horse, if not totally out of it. So that is what we're looking at right now. I wouldn't even say totally out of it, but I have 2 Yanu on my thing. I don't know how that's going to play out down the line.
And we talked about this before we started recording, but the competition in this episode was basically Abigail's team versus my team.
We're right there, so we can jump right into that too. Absolutely hilarious. So I'll read the teams off. So team 1 was Q, Ben, Tevin, Tim, Hunter, and Kenzie. And team 2 was Charlie, Venus, Soda, Liz, Moriah, and Maria. Tiffany ended up picking the men, mostly men. I say men because it was so almost evenly split. It was fucking insane. And this is part of the thing where I was mentioning earlier, it's like, I don't necessarily hate a random rock draw in general, but not in this situation when you are going to have a physical challenge leading into a puzzle. If that is what you are choosing for a merge-atory challenge, I do not think that it is fair to have a rock draw. That is just my opinion. Also, you and I talk about the impacts of small things on a social game, and Eliza Orleans, just want to shout her out because I did not have this. This is not an original thought. She said it, and I was like, oh, duh. It's so much. There's so much more that goes into a social game when you force people to do a schoolyard pick. We can talk about the impacts it had on Big Brother when you give them like advanced notice and they can plan for that. But when you throw it right at them and they aren't able to plan for a schoolyard pick, which oftentimes they really aren't, it really allows people to reveal their social games. And then Eliza was one of the people who was last picked on her season of not Heroes vs. Villains. Excuse me. I wish she was on that, on Fans versus Favorites. And so she's like, yeah. And then the people who are last picked have different kind of motivations in terms of social game moving forward. It all has social impacts. And so it's not a big thing. I just think moving forward, if they really want to have as much influence on the game without actually forcing themselves on the game, I think it would just be good to let them pick their own teams for this, especially in merge-atory. Like,
yeah, and see how that shakes up.
I did have the thought, when it comes to the 3-tribe format and you have a whole tribe decimated, are you not going to just get Siga picking Siga, Nami picking Nami, and then Yanu getting split 1-2? Maybe that's why we shouldn't have a 3-tribe format. I'm good.
You're fine. The
3-tribe format ruins that too. I don't know.
I don't see it going anywhere for some
Also,
reason.
it might not even ruin it though if they did, because like when they did not heroes or villains, when they did the fans versus favorites, they were like, you have to pick a favorite, then you have to pick a fan, then you have to pick a favorite, then you have to pick a fan in order. And I know that was because like they had that, but then say like, okay, you have to pick a man, you have to pick a woman, now you have to pick a woman, now you have to pick a man. Make it so it's going to be somewhat even. They've done that in the past. It's not rocket science, so I'll stop bitching now.
You're good.
So we again had another physically based obstacle course that ended in a puzzle. And it was really frustrating personally to watch at the beginning because I was like, are we really doing this again? It was fun to see them evenly matched, and I was like, oh, this might actually be not a crazy off balance challenge. And then as soon as we got to the carts, that changed. It was just like, what are you gonna do? At least we had the puzzle to be the equalizer. I just think it's frustrating to have it always be the equalizer, if that makes sense. Doesn't even need to be a puzzle. Do a something else. There's got to be. I just feel like there's got to be.
I didn't hate it as much just because they've like backed off of that for so much this season already that I was like, all right, you're fine. It's fine this time, I guess.
Yeah. You know, I think where you and I differ on that, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, it just feels like the challenges still seem so similar to each other versus when we used to watch Survivor, it would be like crazy different kinds of challenges, and it wasn't obstacle course every time or running around. Like there was an obstacle course one that I loved where it's like, I don't know why they don't bring this back, where the two tribes were separated and then they had to put like sticks and tie them up with twine into like this like tunnel, and then the next like they would like have like 10 minutes to put all the sticks and twine into the tunnel, and then Jeff would be like, all right, time's up, switch sides, and then the teams would have to go fight through that tunnel to get to the other side and complete the challenge. So it was like an obstacle course, but like they had more control over it. There was, even though this led to some pretty nasty injuries, there were like when the challenge where you would be tethered to another player and you're chasing them around an obstacle course and you're playing tag. There's even the one that they haven't done this in years, where you're literally standing in shallow water and you all have sandbags and you're just walking around in a circle trying to catch each other, and the first tribe to catch the other wins. I just don't know why we don't have more of those. And I'm not trying to say that these challenges are all bad. They're not. It's just all so boring and generic to me when there are so many other kinds of challenges that we've seen that aren't obstacle courses that we could be doing.
Yeah.
But I feel like people have to be getting sick of us because this is me now too. It's like, I guarantee people are like, shut the fuck up about this at this point. Like, what are we going to change? What are they going to change? I don't think they're going to change anything unless we give them incentive to. And the incentive is more money. And I don't know where they're going to get that. So anyways, surprise, surprise, the men's team won. It did get close at the end. They got my hopes up. I was really depressed over that ending. No, I'm kidding. It was just fun to see that very close underdog story, and I was just disappointed that it just fell short right at the end. It was like getting the rug ripped out from underneath you.
I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, because your winners were on there, you bitch.
Yeah.
So we get it back, and I think we've talked a lot about what happened pre-tribal already, but really one of the big things is the reward that came with the winners coming from this challenge. They got to have just a little feast, and the merge feast basically. And no matter how hard Yanu and Nami tried, Siga was struggling to give a name. It shouldn't have been as hard as they, and by Siga, I mean Tim and Ben. This is totally personal bias because like I've been Team Ben since I found out he was a metalhead. I feel like love him. Oh. I fucking love that man. That man, I want to be best friends with that man. I think like part of it is that Ben doesn't see the full structure like Tim does. So Ben was just kind of like, well, I don't want to like hurt somebody that I could potentially still be vibing with. Like cuz he's kind of like the head of the vibe tribe at that point, where it's not like he's like the top guy, but he's the top vibe guy. He's like, why would I want to not vibe with the people I've been vibing with? He hasn't had any incentive to do so. Tim has had plenty of incentive to turn on people, and I think that's why I'm a little more like frustrated with Tim, because it's like, hey, you didn't even have to throw someone under the bus. There are plenty of ways you can throw out names without saying, I want XYZ voted out. And I feel like that's just how it felt to them. So I don't know. I think that's part of Moriah's downfall in this episode too, is that like she was really, without being betrayed by her own tribe, she was betrayed by her tribe. Even though they did toss her name out, they were like so reluctant to do that.
They were. And I don't she should have spoken up way before tribal. That was just I got no notes other than that. Like that's the
I'm
note,
so sad.
you know?
Because I actually think that had she done that one move, she could have really gone.
Yeah, I would have been Venus.
You know, I've sat and thought about it, and I mean this in all kindness. I really just want to know more about why she made that decision. Like, she's done it, like, exit interviews about it, but it just doesn't, like, click in my brain, you know? Like, it just doesn't seem like, and maybe it's because, like, when you're not on Survivor and you're omnipotent, you have this view where it's like, oh, it should be so obvious how you play it. So,
of course, and we see that throughout. Like, and I try to stay objective. In that way. I'm sure the merge is very overwhelming and it's very hard to catch a sense of how the vote's going to go, or if you're in danger or in trouble. It's very hard when you don't know how to read these people. You don't know when they're acting shady because you don't know how they act, period. So this has got to be like one of the toughest tribals to go into as a Survivor player.
I will say 3-tribe format is nice in this sense because it's not just one versus the other, where you have a lot of people to game with.
It does give you more of a level playing field for this first merge vote.
And I think in theory it does, until you have 2 tribes that are basically even, and then you give the 3rd tribe basically all the control.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what we looked at here, where it was like, Siegel was like, I mean, we'll go with Venus, I guess, and everybody rewind. Everybody on, Jesus, did I say that right and just didn't realize? My brain's on the fritz.
You're good.
Jump in, because that was just a brain fart. And now I'm like rethinking everything I thought about that. But I do agree with what
I think that the series of events that led up to tribal, with who had advantages, who won the competition, the safety comp, that like I feel like all of those things just didn't work out for Moriah, but it was just so fickle. It was very, very fickle, because had she had a conversation and let any of the other tribes know that she was on the outs the last vote, then her name wouldn't even been in consideration.
I don't know. It's just, there's a lot that I still wonder about Moriah's game.
And I think I'd be interested to hear more and more from her side of things. This is kind of one of those things about Survivor that I can't have as strong opinions as I do about Big Brother, because on Big Brother, at least I know these people from the live feeds. Like I can read them better and I hear all the conversations. And so this is kind of one of those things where I just feel like the edit didn't give us enough. Mm-hmm. But there was, to production credit, there was a lot of content to squeeze into this episode. So
yeah, absolutely.
That being said, it was such like a streamlined and easy episode that it wasn't super confusing. It was just kind of very black and white, that it's made recording this episode a lot simpler and easier.
So yeah, tribal council ended up being interesting and also not interesting. Like, because of Moriah's, I don't want to say inability, because it wasn't inability. She just didn't think to reveal her big secret about being the bottom of Siga. I felt like tribal council, unfortunately, was more lackluster than I was hoping for. I was really hoping for goddamn fireworks and just everything. And I think they edited it very well to make it seem more fiery and feisty than it ultimately ended up being. Because the vibes that it gave off was that it was a lot of kind of holding cards to the chest, unless it was something about Moriah going home or Venus going home. And even still in those situations, it felt like a lot of the cards were still held to the chest. So, like, for such a good episode, I was personally a little let down with Tribal Council, just because I was like, let's go, fireworks, everything's gonna be good. And then they were just like, yeah, 10-1 vote. Wasn't even close. Smart on the players for going. So I have two opinions. Smart on the players who went with the vibe to go with the vibe, but smart on Charlie for throwing that goddamn hanky vote. And I call it a hanky vote because nobody else voted that way. That was I love that move for him so much, because I think he's the last person, unless Venus is going to figure out that, like, oh, I targeted Charlie last week because she wanted Charlie to go. She did not want a girl to go home. I totally meant to mention that. And so the other person that could have been available was Charlie. And she was like, okay, so Charlie has to go. Because otherwise it's going to be a 6-6 split, men versus women. And if women want to have control of the game, we have to keep the numbers, which I fully agree with. So kudos to Charlie, because I think he was in a really good position to throw that vote and not be fully suspected.
Yes, for sure.
I think,
and I love an agent of chaos.
Well, speaking of chaos, we have some previews for the next episode, which in it we're finding not only in the preview but the sneak peek, Venus is like, it has to have been soda. And I was like, let the drama, ow. Gonna hurt myself because I'm so excited. It's like, let the drama begin. So freaking here for that. I have to say, one of the best things, and I geeked to Sarah when I found this out. So episode 7 is next week. Would you like to know what it's called?
I love this so much.
It's called Episode Several.
Jelinski will always live in infamy for that.
I love it. I love it so fucking much. It's so great. So, like, and literally in my notes, it says in all bold, best name ever. I'm obsessed. But that's not even like, none of that of what I just mentioned is even the climax of what we're going to be looking at next week. Because next week, we have double elimination. This is going to get sick. We have 6-6 split, men versus women. We have Siga that has now been absolutely downgraded. It used to be that there was almost even between Siga and Nami now absolutely has the numbers advantage. But then we also have the Journey 6. And so everything's kind of starting to pile up. One of the big things to note about this coming episode is in the next time on Survivor, we find out that Tiffany and Kenzie are not thrilled with Q right now. Pretty much sounds like they want to go against him. And if they're talking about voting, it kind of sounds like they all might end up on the same team to go to tribal council with.
Yeah. How
in the fucking world, if that happens, how can you let all of Yanu onto one team? It doesn't. Can we please do more random picks so we don't have rock draws that end in like less than ideal situations?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Let's be honest.
You're fine.
I'm really excited for this next episode. my competitive ass is just like looking at who's left on my draft and be like, we're good, babes. We are good. We are in good spots.
I don't care. I still think I have the number. I still think my winner pick, not the one, just one of them. Maria is gonna plow your ass. She's gonna come in and knock you on your ass. I fucking promise. And if I don't get it right, the second we start the episode after she gets voted out, I will kiss Sarah's ass immediately.
Freshly waxed. It's fine.
You actually, I will give you warning. You better believe it needs to be waxed, you bitch.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm very excited for the next episode.
Yep. So we get like, this is not the Q show, and like the big quote is like, Tiffany says that like what Q wants to do is not working for her and Kenzie, supposedly, which is huge. There's hints at a blind side from Tevin. So whoever Tevin is going to tribal council with, that could be a blind side. Ben is nervous. He says, I'm screwed. Venus says she's stressing. I'm here for the fucking chaos. Like, not everything has to be chaos on Survivor, but like, this is the fun shit. This is the fun shit. I'm really excited to see where this goes moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to do the questions now, or would we like to?
Yeah. So it is our 50th episode, and
our 50th anniversary. We've been doing it for 50
anniversary.
years.
We are running a little slow on time, but I do have a couple questions. And we're going to start off with Lucas's questions. He asks, describe how you see reality TV as a whole evolving in the next 5 years. Also, where do you want to see it go? Do you want to answer that first? Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
We've talked about this on the pod before, that reality TV is the next wave. Like, that is it is trending. It is trending up. Multiple networks are getting on board. We're seeing a plethora, a buffet, if you will, of new reality competition shows and reality shows in general. I'm work-wise, I'm here for it. You know, Sarah talks. Literally pick your poison, because we got it all. So I'm here for that. As far as like the evolution of it, I am seeing the new shows that are coming out, the new concepts that are coming out are, I'm optimistic. I'm excited about it. I'm seeing less production interference. We're not trying to overcomplicate it, and more emphasis on human nature and how human beings respond to this certain stimuli, to this situation, when this money is involved. And if we can get the focus back to what made reality television so captivating when it first came out, to let's watch human nature. Let's see how people react in these situations, and let's play along in our head, in the back of our heads, of what we would do in that situation. That is harder to relate to, and that is harder to put yourself in that position when they're reacting to a twist, or not having a vote, or when they're reacting to all these production interferences instead of just the situation they're presented with. It becomes less relatable and less reality.
Think about, just to jump in real quick, think about how what I just mentioned when it comes to rock draws versus schoolyard picks. Schoolyard picks work so much better on reality television because you are showing your cards in terms of potentially of who you are aligning with. If you're smart enough, you can kind of not even weasel around it, because eventually it's still going to show your cards to some degree. You can try and do anything you can to outsmart that twist, and it will still get people thinking about where you sit, what your alliances are. And that's what we've been missing, I think, from a lot of recent reality television. So I'll let you finish up before I'd like.
Yeah, I was just saying that's where it's trending. That's where I want it to go. That's where I want to see. I'm aligned with the trend right now and what we are seeing. And the more networks that we get on, I mean, you're still going to have there's reality, and there's reality competition side. I feel like we, as in the reality television space, we are probably going to see less of the overly scripted and prompted Real
Kardashian-like
Housewives.
shows. Yeah.
Yes, Real Housewives, Kardashians, and we're going to start seeing more love on the spectrums. Like I was just, we were talking Squid Games, we were talking
were we talking?
Yeah. But Traders, like where it's not as on the competition side. It's more people just being people. Because not just an uptick in reality television, but I'm also seeing a huge uptick in documentaries. And so I feel like those production teams are kind of finding their ways to each other in that way. And I'm excited for that. But yeah, I'm sorry. That was a very long-winded answer to the question, but
no, and that's fine. And so Sarah's kind of gotten me to come around on my opinion on this, but I'm still very skeptical about a lot, and I won't say all of the things I said to her. I'll be very more vague. But I think there are some places that are, a lot of places are kind of copying what's been done. And it's like, no one's saying don't do that if there's like a format that you can follow. To be fair, she called me out on this when I was like, it's not like this. But like Deal or No Deal Island has kind of done it where it's like, oh, it's Survivor, you're just doing Deal or No Deal. But I at least think that like the difference is like they have their own premise. But I think I'm sitting here kind of thinking about like where reality television goes in the next 5 years. And one of my big things is I think a lot of places are doing reality television because it's so low budget. I just worry that they're going to look at low budget and they're just going to think low effort. And that's really what I'm worried about, because I feel like that's like a lot of what's been happening in a lot of the shows that we have been enjoying. Like, or it's just overexerted effort and they don't actually understand what people are looking for. So I'm not saying I don't have negative hopes. I do think that reality television will continue on this path, but also there are producers out there that are making it very clear that working in Hollywood right now is really, really, really difficult. And that even breaking into reality television as an industry, not as like a person who competes on the shows, but somebody who works on the shows, is really, really, really difficult right now. So as much as I am optimistic about what we could be watching, I don't even know if I can be, because I'm worried about the jobs that the people who work for these shows. And if they're going to lose their jobs, what does that mean for reality television in general? I don't know. I think the second part of the question is really interesting, though. Where do you want to see it go? I want a union. I know that's really kind of almost like not probably what Sarah's expecting when I say that. I think we need to start protecting the workers, including the people who are competing on these shows. And I think they need more legal rights. I think that the best way to go about this is to have a union. I understand that there is nothing perfect about anything in any capacity in this world. And I just think that the best way to protect their rights, to protect their well-being, is to have them represented under an umbrella where they can actually fight for their rights, actually fight for things that they deserve when they're on these shows. Because, Bethany Frankel has been talking about kind of like a reality revolution. And there are things about her reality revolution ideas that I agree and disagree with, but I think ultimately it is what we need is to be able to protect these people. Because there are people who are on Love is Blind who are suing Netflix because they're like, this was inhumane, that was inhumane. Even if this is a normal practice, this shouldn't be a normal practice. And I think that's really the big thing. So in the next 5 years, my ideal I would like to see non-scripted shows, not because that's what reality falls under. I want to see non-scripted shows unionized. Protect the kids, especially the kids who have to be on these shows, have no say in what they're doing whatsoever.
Speaking of kids on shows, we will be recording a special episode covering Quiet on the Set, the new documentary that is out now on HBO. You can also catch it on Hulu and YouTube TV. Go and watch it. We are waiting. They just dropped the last episode on Sunday. And we're just kind of waiting for some more reaction stuff, and we want to gather all the info and all the interviews for you. And we'll cover it in a special episode because you all have a lot of thoughts on it. We all have a lot of thoughts on it. So let's just talk about it together. So,
and if you have questions, just like you do for this podcast, email, or just for this, like for Survivor and Big Brother and all these fun things. For the serious stuff, you can still email wicked unscripted pod, POD at gmail.com. So I'll say it again, wicked unscripted, name of the podcast, POD as in podcast, at gmail.com. It can be a comment about the situation and we can feed off of it. It can be a question and we can feed off of it. Anything. It's really important that we have these conversations. And that's why I think this question, just praise to Lucas. Thank you for asking this. Cause like, I think it's a really important thing that we think about this. Oh, love Lucas. All right. What is the next question? What do we got?
So I feel like for timing's sake that we should save the other one. We did have a guest that was slotted to come onto this episode, and life is life. And they were unfortunately not able to make it, but we are rescheduling with them for the next one. And so I feel like the remaining questions are going to be great ones for that special guest to answer with us.
We'll do a 50th celebration with an asterisk, which I really don't mind. Like
50 fucking episodes. We can have a multi-episode celebration. It's fine.
Who cares? We could literally celebrate our 50th episode until we go to 100 episodes.
Exactly.
So fucking suck our dick. Sorry. But anyways. Okay. Anything else before I start my final spiel? Well, that wraps up this episode of Wicked Unscripted. So if you like what you hear, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We are also regularly posting updates on TikTok in particular. We're also chatting on Twitter, but biggest ones you can find are going to be on TikTok. So make sure you follow us at It's Abigail Adams or Sarah Talks Big Brother. She talks a lot more than Big Brother, but I don't blame you for not wanting to let go of that name. That's a
but my username, like I changed it officially on TikTok too. It's just Sarah Talks.
Really? I missed that.
I don't think the username itself, like the login changes, but Sarah Talks is the name now.
I love that. Absolutely love it. And then you can also check out Wicked Unscripted. We will be posting more. I say this every week. It's just been well, when we have a talk on the next episode, if we shoot the shit, I'll just explain shit. But for now, I'm still locked out. But we will be posting more there. If you want to ask a question, share your thoughts, or leave us a tip, it can be for the quiet on set thing that we just mentioned. It can be for Survivor, especially Survivor. Please email the podcast at wickedunscriptedpod, POD at gmail.com for more. That is wicked unscripted pod, POD at gmail.com.
Gmail.
We're always looking for fresh and diverse voices to join our conversations. So with that, we will see you next time, and stay tuned for hopefully a special guest next time.
Bye.